evening. We'll just take a few minutes to let everybody enter the webinar. As this is a webinar, you'll notice that your camera is off and your microphone is muted. However, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen to participate. Tonight's event is being filmed and will be made available on Bloomsday on our social media. So, good evening. My name is Sandra Godkin and I'm joined by my colleague, James Barry. We work in the Central Library on Henry Street, and tonight's event is a collaboration with our neighbours, the James Joyce Centre on North Great Georgia Street. When we were planning this event with Darina and Sinéad, we agreed that we wanted to encourage people to start reading Ulysses, and especially anyone who's felt daunted by its reputation. So we would love you to send any questions or comments you have about the book or tonight's performance using the question and answer function. And we'll try to get through as many of them as we can after the performance. But now we'll go over to Darina Gallagher and Sinéad Murphy at the James Joyce Centre, where they'll use a mixture of music and conversation to open up Ulysses. Thank you.
I don't know, Sinéad. Do you think we should open it up?
Yeah, I think you should open up the book.
I don't know, I'm scared.
No, go on.
It's really big.
Yeah, I know it's really big, but if you don't open it, we'll be here all night.
Oh, but it's got so many words.
Yeah, there's a lot of words. We'll get through them, don't worry. We don't have to read all of them.
Are you sure?
Yeah, just like a
Just
short
some of them?
synopsis.
Can we sing some songs too?
Oh, please, let's sing some songs.
Great. Time to open up Ulysses.
The book is open.
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to start?
Well, what happens at the very beginning? Okay, what do we know? It's June 16th, it's a Thursday, and it's 1904. Why did Joyce pick that day again?
Well, it was because he was meeting Nora Barnacle for the first time, but actually he was supposed to meet her today on the 14th.
Oh.
Yeah, but she stood him up.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this day was really important in Joyce and Nora Barnacle's life. So he sets Ulysses on this one day, and it starts at 8 a.m. in the morning. But the thing about this book is it has two beginnings, makes it a little bit confusing. So the first beginning, we start out in Sandy Cove Tower, the Martello Tower in Sandy Cove, and we meet the first of our characters, our main characters. We meet a lot of characters in Ulysses. The first character is Stephen Dedalus, and for those who've read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, we know a lot about Stephen Dedalus already. He's a young man, he's 22, who grew up in Dublin, and now he's couch surfing in his friend Buck Mulligan's house in the Martello Tower in Sandy Cove.
Yeah, Stephen is fairly tortured. Buck, not so much. So Ulysses starts with a fake mass, just in case you're wondering what I'm doing. Stately, plump Buck Mulligan came from the stairhead, bearing a bowl of lather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. A yellow dressing gown, ungirdled, was sustained gently behind him on the mild morning air. He held the bowl aloft and intoned, "Introibe ad altare Dei." Halted, he peered down the dark, winding stairs and called out coarsely, "Come up, Kinch! Come up, you fearful Jesuit!" So up comes Kinch, or Stephen, the fearful Jesuit. He's fearful because Stephen's mother has recently died, and he recalls her passing with really mixed feelings because he refused to pray. So Buck is kind of taking the piss, really, by saying mass.
Stephen has rejected religion, and his mother has just died, and he refused to pray at her deathbed. But his mother, like Joyce and his own mother, had a wonderful relationship through music, and they sang their way through his glorious childhood with his parents, who both loved music. Joyce himself was a wonderful singer, and one of the ways we explored Ulysses and found our way into it was through music. At the beginning of Ulysses, Stephen thinks about his mother and going to the pantomime in the Gaiety Theatre. She was dying. Her door was open. She wanted to hear my music. Silent with awe and pity, I went to her bedside. She was crying in her wretched bed. For those words, Stephen, love's bitter mystery. Where now her secrets, old feather fans, tasseled dance cards, powdered with musk, a gaud of amber beads in her locked drawer, a birdcage hung in the sunny window of her house when she was a girl. We heard old Royce sing in the pantomime of Turco the Terrible and laughed with others when he sang, I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Shh. I'm sure it would be nice to be able to vanish from sight, to be able to stop at the whiskey shop till after 11 at night, to consult an attorney and disappear when he speaks of fees, to travel by rail in the limited mail and vanish at tickets, please. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Should I happen to break the laws, as the best of us often do, I'd wait till the bobby was out in the lobby and then disappear from view. Should the weather become too hot for clothing, however small, it would be a treat to do Grafton Street without any clothes at all. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. I'm sure it would be fine should your landlord call for rent, to disappear and never to hear what the deuce it was he meant. For to vanish to Sandy Mount, shall the gas collector call with his 3 months' bill, and your cash was nil and you nothing at all at all. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Invisibility, you say, is just the thing for me. I am the boy that can enjoy invisibility. Shh.
Ah, yes, the old music hall, there's nothing like it. So we're going to just kind of take you on a whistle-top tour through all 18 episodes of Ulysses. We're not going to do a scene from each of them. Some of them will just kind of tell you roughly what happens and leave it up to you to open up your own book with as much drama as we always do. We always do it like that, with the piano and the really slow will I, won't I? Suspense. Right, so after that very first opening episode, Telemachus, we have episode 2, Nestor, where Stephen goes to work. He's a school teacher. There's some great quotes in that episode. History is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake is my own personal favourite. And then episode 3 in Proteus, Stephen walks the beach at Sandymount, philosophizing in a kind of a Hamlet kind of a way, a very moany kind of to be or not to be. There's some good quotes in it too, though. Shut your eyes and see is one of my favourites. This is the episode usually that people kind of stop at because they find it difficult, but actually it's worth a read, just for the shut your eyes and see bit. It's my opinion, and anyway. Time for our second main character's story to start. Yes, this is a story of two very distinct characters. Their paths will crisscross all the way through, and it's only eventually towards the end that they actually meet. So, also at 8 a.m. on the morning of June 16th, 1904, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Leopold Bloom, who works in the gentle art of advertising. He lives at number 7 Eccles Street with his wife, Molly, who is a singer.
Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowls. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roast heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, fried hen cod's roes. Most of all, he liked gradled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine.
Ew.
Kidneys were on his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on the humpy tray. Gelid light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors, a gentle summer morning everywhere made him feel a bit peckish. The coals were reddening. Another slice of butter, bread and butter. 3, 4, right. She didn't like her plate full. Right. He turned from the tray, lifted the kettle off the hob and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there dull and squat. Its spout stuck out. Cup of tea soon, good, mouth dry. The cat walked stiffly round a leg of the table with tail on high. Ah, post! A letter for me from Millie in Mullingar and a card for you. And a letter for you, Mrs. Marion Bloom. Who's the letter from?
Oh, Boylan. He's bringing the programme.
And what are you singing?
La Si de Rem with J.C. Doyle and Love's Old Sweet Song. Blazes Boylan is Molly's manager stroke lover. And they're arranging a rehearsal for later at 4. Now, Bloom knows what's likely to happen at this meeting, and he spends the rest of the day trying to not think about it, which he's totally unsuccessful at.
A letter from our daughter, Millie. She was 15 yesterday, her first birthday away from home. Oh, Millie Bloom, you are my darling.
Dearest Papley, thanks ever so much for the lovely birthday present. It suits me splendid. Everyone says I am quite the belle in my new tam. I got Mummy's lovely box of creams and I'm writing. They are lovely. I am getting on swimming in the photo business now. Mr. Coughlin took one of me and Mrs. We'll send when developed. We did great biz yesterday. Fair day, and all the beef to the heels were in. We are going to Loch Owell on Monday with a few friends to make a scrap picnic. Give my love to Mummy and to yourself a big kiss and thanks. Oh, I hear them at the piano downstairs. There is to be a concert in the Greville Arms on Saturday. There's a young student comes here some evenings named Bannon. His cousins or something are big swells, and he sings Boylan's. I was on the pop of writing Blazes Boylan's song about those seaside girls. Tell him, Silly Millie sends my best respects. I must close now with fondest love, your fond daughter, Millie. P.S. Excuse bad writing, I'm in hurry. Bye-bye, M.
Her first birthday away from home. Separation. Remember the summer morning she was born, running to knock up Mrs. Thornton in Denzil Street. Jolly old woman, lots of babies she must have helped into the world. She knew from the first, poor little Rudy wouldn't live. Well, God is good, sir. She knew at once. He would be 11 now if he lived. His vacant face stared pityingly at the postscript. Excuse bad writing, hurry, piano downstairs, coming out of her shell. He smiled with troubled affection at the kitchen window, her pale blue scarf loose in the wind with her hair. All dimpled cheeks and curls, your head it simply swirls. Seaside girls, torn envelope, hands stuck in his trousers, Jarvey off for the day singing, friend of the family. Swirls, he says, piers with lamps, summer evening, band. Those girls, those girls, those lovely seaside girls.
Down at Margate, looking very charming, you are sure to meet those girls, dear girls, those lovely seaside girls. With the sticks they steer and promenade the pier to give the boys a treat. In piqué silks and lace, they tip you quite a playful wink. It always is the case, you seldom stop to think. You fall in love, of course, upon the spot, but not with one girl, always with the lot. Those girls, those girls, those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls. They look all right, complexions pink and white, diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and grace and lots of face, those pretty little seaside girls. There's Maud and Clara, Gwendolyn and Sarah, where do they come from? Those girls, dear girls, those lovely seaside girls. In bloomers smart, they captivate the heart while cycling down the prom. At wheels and heels and hose, you must not look 'tis understood, but every Johnny knows it does your eyesight good. The boys observe the latest thing in socks. They learn the time by looking at the clocks. Those girls, those girls, those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, your head it simply whirls. They look all right, complexions pink and white, diamond rings and dainty feet, golden hair from Regent Street, lace and grace and lots of face, those pretty little seaside girls. When you go to do a little boating just for fun, you take those girls, their girls, those lovely seaside girls. They all say,
We so dearly love the sea.
their way on board to make. The wind begins to blow. Each girl remarks, how rough today. It's lovely, don't you know? And then they sneak away. And as the yacht starts rolling with the tide, you'll notice hanging o'er the vessel's side those girls, those lovely seaside girls, all dimples, smiles and curls, each head it simply whirls. They look a sight, complexions green and white, hats fly off and at your feet, golden hair from Regent Street, rouge and puff slips down the cuffs of pretty little seaside girls. Rouge and puffs slips down the cuffs of pretty little seaside girls.
That'd be too weird. Right. So
you're beginning to see how Joyce is weaving music in and out of the minds and words of his characters. And that, for us, was our way to find the real essence of Ulysses. For so many tries, I had attempted to understand, but once we got the feeling of these music hall songs or parlour songs or music of the church or the opera, we were able to feel the energy and soundscape of Dublin City.
yeah, I mean, for example, what you just saw there in Seaside Girls, from then on, any time Bloom thinks of ladies at all, his head, it simply swirls. You know, so once you have the song in your head, it's all there. Good. So that brings us very swiftly on to episode 5, Lotus Eaters.
Ooh.
This is kind of the drug episode. Not as hallucinogenic as it gets later, but, you know, there's a little bit of... Yeah, he does. He buys some soap. I'm getting to it.
Oh, not yet.
Basically, Bloom starts wandering through Dublin. It's very wandery. He collects another letter. He wanders briefly into Mass. He's Jewish, so he's kind of going, yeah, okay.
Well, he's half Jewish, Sinéad, so he just doesn't understand the rituals, but he had to convert to Catholicism to marry Molly.
Yeah, he's still kind of questioning it, though. It's not going. But there's a lot of questioning Catholicism all the way through the book. It's not just Bloom, to be fair. Then he gets soap, this particular soap from Sweeney's chemist.
Oh, lovely.
Lemon soap. He visits the baths, and he gets ready to go to Paddy Dignam's funeral. Paddy Dignam, his friend, died on the 13th of June, and his funeral is at 11 o'clock. So, episode 6, Hades, Glasnevin Cemetery. Bloom travels there with various cronies, including Simon Daedalus, who is Stephen's father.
Poor Paddy Dignam. Oh, I probably need my hat, Sinead. If I'm at,
But you have
if
to
I'm
have
at
a
a
bowler
funeral.
hat. Yeah, but also you can't be Bloom without a bowler hat, really.
That's true.
Yeah.
Show me respects in Glasnevin Cemetery. Poor Paddy Dignam. His last lie on the earth in his box. When you think of them all, it does seem a waste of wood, all gnawed through. They could invent a handsome bier with a kind of panel sliding and let it down that way. Aye, but they might object to being buried out of another fella's. They're so particular. Lay me in my native earth, bit of clay from the Holy Land. Only a mother and dead-born child ever buried in the one coffin. I see what it means. I see. To protect him as long as possible, even in the earth. The Irishman's house is his coffin. Embalming in catacombs, mummies, the same idea. Mr. Bloom stood far back, his hat in his hand, counting the bared heads. 12. I'm 13. No, the chap in the Macintosh is 13. Death's number. Where the deuce did he pop out of? He wasn't in the chapel, that I'll swear. Silly superstition that about 13.
So this whole theme of superstition runs all the way through the book. And the man in the Macintosh remains a complete mystery. It's one of many little mystery puzzle Easter eggs that Joyce put into his book and said, ha ha ha, the scholars will be talking about it for years and trying to work it out. So some say the guy in the Macintosh is Beckett. Other people think it's Parnell. I heard someone say it was Daniel O'Connell. And somebody else says it's some old homeless guy that used to go around in a Macintosh, a little bit like Bang Bang, but like not Bang Bang because that's the wrong era. But yeah, so puzzles and ghosts. Bloom is haunted in the same way that Stephen is haunted. Stephen's haunted by his deceased mother. Bloom is haunted by other ghosts, by the ghost of his deceased child, Rudy, who would be 11 now had he lived, but he died as a baby, and also by his father, Virag. Yeah. move on. Episode 7, Aeolus, Bloom very briefly goes to work, like really briefly. He really doesn't do much work, I have to say. And he and Stephen almost meet, but not quite. One of those crisscross path moments. Episode 8, Lestrygonians, food, Davy Byrne's pub, lunchtime. Before he gets to the pub, though, he meets Mrs. Breen and he hears of Mina Purefoy in Hollis Street Hospital, who's having a very stiff birth. But more of that later. Hungry Bloom. Oh, yep, this section, sorry, I'll shut up in 2 seconds. This section is a good example of how the many inner thoughts a person has before actually speaking aloud, that stream of consciousness thing that Joyce is so famous for. We hear Bloom's entire internal monologue while he actually says very little. He engages in a very brief conversation out loud as he orders lunch. So you can go now.
That's fine, that's fine.
I'll interject.
I think what we've been talking about a little bit and calling the names in that last chapter, Aeolus, and before that in Hades, in Glasnevin Cemetery. These were the names that Joyce put in each of the chapters, and they reflect, of course, the journey of the Odyssey, of Odysseus, or Ulysses as it became in Roman storytelling, and that got handed down to us, and this incredible framework of this journey. So the Odyssey, of course, takes years for Ulysses to travel and return home to Penelope in Ithaca. But of course, our Ulysses only happens in one day. And here we are in the Lestrygonians, the cannibals, the eating of the flesh. And if you remember, when we first met Leopold Bloom, he was rather peckish. I think he might be obsessed with food. He's eating all the way through, but particularly in this chapter. The whole walk of Bloom through the city streets of Dublin is a walk, and if you follow the map, it's like an esophagus. So it's the whole digestive system that we're walking through in Dublin. And we arrive, of course, in the very lovely Davy Byrne's pub. He entered Davy Byrne's pub, moral pub. He doesn't chat, stands a drink now and then, but leap year once in 4. Cashed a cheque for me once. What will I take now? He drew his watch. Let me see now. Shandygaff?
Hello, Bloom, Nosy Flynn said from his nook.
Oh, hello, Flynn.
How's things?
Tip-top. Let me see. I'll take a glass of Burgundy and let me see sardines on the shelves. Almost taste them by looking. Sandwich, ham and his descendants, mustard and bread there. Potted meats. What's a home without Plumtree's potted meat? Incomplete. What a stupid ad. Under the obituary notices they stuck it. All up a plum tree, Dignam's potted meat. Cannibals would with lemon and rice, white missionary too salty, like pickled pork, except the chief consumes the parts of honor. Ought to be tough from exercise. His wives in a row to watch the effect, with an abode of bliss, Lord knows what concoction. Calls mouldy tripes, windpipes faked and minced up, puzzle find the meat kosher. No meat and milk together. Hygiene, that was what they call now. Yom Kippur, fast spring cleaning of inside. Peace and war depend on some fellow's digestion. Religions, Christmas turkeys and geese, slaughter of innocents, eat, drink and be merry, then casual wards full after, heads bandaged. Cheese digests all but itself. Mighty cheese. Have you a cheese sandwich?
Yes, sir.
Like a few olives too, if they had them. Italian I prefer. Cool glass of Burgundy, take that away. Lubricate. A nice salad, cool as a cucumber. Tom Kernan can dress, puts gusto into it. Pure olive oil, milk. Millie served me that cutlet with a sprig of parsley. take 1 Spanish onion. God made food. The devil, the cook's deviled crab.
Wife, well?
Quite well, thanks. Cheese sandwich and gorgonzola, have you?
Yes, sir. Nosy Flynn sipped his grog.
Doing any singing those times?
Look at his mouth. Could whistle in his own ear, flap ears to match, music, knows as much about it as my coachman. Still, better tell him, does no harm. Free ad. She's engaged in a big tour at the end of the month. You may have heard, perhaps?
No. Oh, that's the style. Who's getting it up?
The curate served. How much is that?
7 pence, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bloom cut his sandwich into slender strips.
Mustard, sir.
Thank you. He studied under each lifted strip yellow blobs. Getting it up, well, it's like a company idea, you see, part shares and part profits.
Now I remember,
Nosy Flynn said, putting his hand in his pocket to scratch his groin.
Who's was telling me, isn't Blazes boiling mixed up in it?
A warm shock of air, heat of mustard, hanched on Mr. Bloom's heart. He raised his eyes and met the stare of the bilious clock. 2. Pub clock 5 minutes fast. Time going on, hands moving. 2. Not yet. So Bloom is checking the clock to see what time it is, because he knows at 4 o'clock Blazes Boylan is going to his house to meet his wife, Molly Bloom, and have their illicit affair.
So I don't think he can go home. I think
he can't
has
go home.
Yeah, until he's sure it's over, the rehearsal. Anyway, episode 9, Scylla and Charybdis, which is set in the National Library. Stephen is hanging out with his pals, talking about literary revival type things. I have a note that you're going to introduce this, but actually I think that's probably enough, isn't it? I don't know, unless there's anything more to say, is there?
I always call this the Shakespeare episode. So we have these heroes of the Irish literary revival. AE, they mention Wilde, they mention Synge, Yeats, of course. John Eglinton, who published some of Joyce's work, he gets a mention. And the librarian.
You did, I think I cut him out.
Don't worry.
Sorry, John Eglinton. Anyway.
So it's an interesting chapter to reflect this time and energy, this very passionate and for Joyce a very youthful energy among the students, particularly talking about this exciting time of new Irish writing.
What is a ghost? Stephen said with tingling energy. One who has faded into impalpability through death, through absence, through change of manners. Elizabethan London lay as far from Stratford as corrupt Paris lies from virgin Dublin. Who is the ghost from limbo patrum returning to the world that has forgotten him? Who is King Hamlet? It is this hour of day in mid-June, Stephen said, begging with a swift glance their hearing. The flag is up on the playhouse by the bankside. The bear Sackerson growls in the pit nearest. Do some growling. Paris Garden. Canvas climbers who sailed with Drake chew their sausages among the groundlings. Yeah, chew some sausages. Local colour. You work in all you know. You make them accomplices. Shakespeare has left the Huguenot's house in Silver Street and walks by the Swan Mews along the riverbank. But he does not stay to feed the pen, chivying her game of signets towards the rushes. The Swan of Avon has other thoughts. Composition of place. Ignatius Loyola, make haste to help me. The play begins. A player comes on under the shadow, made up in the cast-off mail of a court book, a well-set man with a bass voice. It is the ghost, the king, a king and no king. And the player is Shakespeare, who has studied Hamlet all the years of his life, which were not vanity in order to play the part of the spectre. He speaks the words to Burbage, the young player, who stands before him beyond the rack of cerecloth, calling him by a name. Hamlet, I am thy father's spirit, bidding him list. To a son he speaks, the son of his soul, the prince, young Hamlet, and to the son of his body, Hamnet Shakespeare, who has died in Stratford, that his namesake may live forever. Is it possible that the player Shakespeare, a ghost by absence, and in the vesture of buried Denmark, a ghost by death, speaking his own words to his own son's name, had Hamnet Shakespeare lived, he would have been Prince Hamlet's twin? Is it possible, I want to know, or probable that he did not draw or foresee the logical conclusion of those premises? You are the dispossessed son. I am the murdered father. Your mother is the guilty queen. Now,
what's interesting about our two main characters here is perhaps what we've just listened to is this father-son relationship, that in a way Bloom is the father figure to Stephen, the young, excited child, son figure, and this complicated relationship that exists. Of course, we do meet Stephen's real father in a portrait of the artist, where we see so much more of Stephen and his childhood and his growing up. He must reject this difficult, outrageous father and fly the nets of both fatherhood and fatherland, in a way rejecting his family and his father. But here now we begin to see some more of the characters all arriving together in the Sirens Bar in the Ormond Hotel. So in a way they hear the call of the sirens, guiding them from the different streets that they're wandering around, including Simon Dedalus, Stephen's father, who was based on, I don't know if you can see the image of Joyce's real father behind us.
I think it's
just been out. He, of course, was a wonderful raconteur and the life and soul of the party, and we really get a glimpse of him in the Ormond Hotel. Here, it's getting near to the time, 4 o'clock, that Bloom knows that Blazes has to meet Molly, and Blazes actually arrives in the Sirens Bar in the Ormond Hotel, and Bloom has to kind of duck for cover as Blazes arrives.
He doesn't want to meet him.
He doesn't want to see him.
No,
if there's anyone, he's been ducking and diving and avoiding him for the whole day. But we like to perform as the siren barmaids themselves,
who are slowly drawing everybody in as sirens do, drawing them into the pub.
So here we have Miss Bronze and Miss Gold, the barmaids, and they're watching the vice-regal cavalcade wander through the streets of Dublin outside the Ormond Hotel. And the cavalcade is on its way to the Mirrors Bazaar, and later on they'll be watching the fireworks, Lord and Lady Dudley.
Now for you. Bronze.
By gold.
Miss Deuce's head.
By Miss Kennedy's head.
Over the cross blind of the Ormond Bar. Heard the vice-regal hoofs go by, ringing steel.
Clip clap, clip clap, clip clap. Is that her?
Yes, sitting with his ex. Pale grey, you know, Danil.
Oh, it's an exquisite contrast.
Look at that fella in the tall silk.
Well, where?
There. In the second carriage.
Mind till I see.
Oh, he's looking. Oh, he's killed looking back. wept. Aren't men frightful idiots?
Oh, is them has the fine times.
Bronze from an ear,
Buy gold from afar,
heard steel from an ear,
ring hoofs from afar,
and heard steel hoofs, ring hoof, ring steel. Am I awfully sunburnt?
No, gets brown after. Did you try the borax with the cherry laurel water?
Leave it to my hands.
Try it with the glycerine.
Well, those things only bring me out in a rash. I asked the old Fogey and Boyd's for something for me skin.
Oh, don't make me think of him, for God's sake.
No, wait, I tell you.
Oh, no, don't. I won't listen.
No. For your what? Says he.
Oh, old greasy eyes. Do you remember that night in the ancient concert room?
And here he was. Oofa! Oofa!
Do you remember his goggle eye? Oh, Marge.
And your other eye?
Oh, imagine being married to a fella like that with a little bit of a beard.
Oh, imagine being married to that greasy nose. Oh, saints above. I wish I hadn't laughed so much. I feel all wet.
Oh, Miss Deuce, you horrid thing.
Oh, look at the holy show I am, sitting out on the strand all day.
It's exceedingly naughty of you, Miss Deuce, tempting all those simple males.
Oh, go away.
There is a garden fair set in an eastern sea. There is a maid keeping her tryst with me in the shade of the palm with a lover's delight, where 'tis ever a golden day or a silvery night. Ah, my Dolores, Queen of the Eastern Sea, fair one of Eden, look to the west for me. My star will be shining bright while you're in the moonlight cloud. So be waiting for me by the eastern sea in the shade of the sheltering palm. There is an island fair girt by a western sea. Dearest, is there one day thou go with me? 'Neath the glorious moon, hand in hand we'll roam. Hear the nightingales sing in June in the dear land of home. Oh, my Dolores, Queen of the Eastern Sea, fair one of Eden, look to the west for me. My star will be shining bright when you're in the moonlight cloud. So be waiting for me in the eastern sea, in the shade of the sheltering palm. Oh, my Dolores, my Queen of the sea, so be waiting for me by the eastern sea, in the shade of the sheltering palm.
Our modern-day Dublin sirens.
Oh,
Oh, it's my favourite bit. You'd swear that means I know it. I don't. I have it all written down here, but it's my favourite bit. It's episode 12, Cyclops. Because in the Greek version, he fights all these mad monsters and he fights the Cyclops. But in James Joyce's version, the Cyclops is a one-eyed citizen who's holding forth about nationalism in Barney Kernan's pub. We've all totally lost track of time. It's probably past 4 now.
it's about
5.
20 past 5.
Something like that. A lot of pints have been drunk, you know, who knows. So yeah, the One-Eyed Citizen is kind of based on the GAA founder, Michael Cusack. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, he was a big, larger-than-life character, and he's holding forth in the pub, the citizen. So
Oh no, I meant do you have anything to say about the GAA founder, Michael Cusack? But if you don't, that's cool. We'll just, we'll carry on.
Well, again, I guess in this episode, Joyce is bringing us into the world of this burgeoning world of Irish nationalism. So we've seen a bit of the national literary revival in the National Library, and here we have this burgeoning nationalism and republicanism that's beginning to happen all around him in 1904. So Joyce doesn't shy away from everything that's happening in Dublin at that time.
Bloom was talking with John Wise, and he quite excited with his dun-duckety mud-coloured mug on him and his old plum eyes rolling about.
Persecution, all the history of the world is full of it, perpetuating national hatred among nations.
But do you know what a nation means? Says John Wise.
Yes, says Bloom.
Yeah, what is it? Says John Wise.
A nation, says Bloom, a nation is the same people living in the same place.
By God then, says Ned, laughing. If that's so, I'm a nation, for I'm living in the same place for the past 5 years. So, of course, everyone had to laugh at Bloom, and says he, trying to muck out of it.
Or, of course, living in different places.
That covers my case, says Joe. What is your nation, if I may ask, says the citizen.
Ireland, says Bloom. I was born here. Ireland.
The citizen says nothing. Only cleared the spit out of his gullet, and gob, he spat a red bank oyster out of him right into the corner.
And I belong to a race too, says Bloom, that is hated and persecuted. Also now, this very moment, this very instant.
Gob, he near burnt his fingers with the butt of his old cigar.
Robbed, plundered, insulted, persecuted, taking what belongs to us by right at this very moment, sold by auction in Morocco like slaves or cattle.
Are you talking about the New Jerusalem? Says the citizen.
I'm talking about injustice,
Right.
says Bloom.
Yeah, says John Wise. Stand up to it then, like with force, like men.
But that's no use. Force, hatred, history, all that. That's not life for men and women, insult and hatred. And everyone knows it's the very opposite of that is really life.
What?
Love, says Bloom. I mean the opposite of hatred. I must go now, just around the corner a moment to see if Martin's there. If he comes in, I'll be back in a second, just a moment.
Who's hindering you? And off he pops like greased lightning. A new apostle to the Gentiles, says the citizen. Universal love. Well, says John Wise, isn't that what we're told? Love your neighbour. That chap, says the citizen. Beggar my neighbour is his motto. Love my He's a nice pattern of a Romeo and Juliet.
Love loves to love, love.
Which is kind of the heart of the book.
I guess here we really saw a picture of Bloom as outsider. So we've seen him as outsider, this idea of the wandering Jew wandering around Dublin, but here it comes to the fore, this he can never really quite fit in. I guess that's why it means so much to all of us. Maybe we're all trying to fit in, no matter where we are. We feel like outsiders.
Yeah. Folly that. We'll follow it with episode 13, which is, I know I said Cyclops was my favourite, but that's my new favourite. Episode 13, Nausicaa, is my old favourite episode. And it is set on Sandymount Strand. And we have Bloom sitting there by himself. And we have some girls on the beach. And there's a church, the Star of the Sea Church in Sandymount. And there's beautiful music coming out of the church.
La, 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 la.
On the evening air. Let's go for it.
Ooh, my hat.
3 girlfriends were seated on the strand, on Sandymount Strand, enjoying the evening scene and the air, which was fresh but not too chilly.
Sissy Caffrey
And Edie Boardman with the baby in the pushcar.
and Tommy and Jackie Caffrey, 2 little curly-headed boys dressed in sailor suits with hats to match. For Tommy and Jackie Caffrey were twins, scarce 4 years old and very spoilt and noisy twins sometimes, but for all that, darling little fellows with bright, merry faces and endearing ways about them. They were dabbling in the sand, building castles as children do, and playing with their big coloured ball, as happy as the day was long.
And Edie Boardman was rocking the chubby little baby to and fro in the pushcar, while that young gentleman fairly chuckled with delight. He was but 11 months and 9 days old, and though still a tiny toddler, was just beginning to lisp his first babyish words.
Oh, and Sissy Caffrey leaned over him to tease his fat little plucks and the dainty dimple in his chin. Now, baby, say out big, big, I want a drink of water. And baby prattled after her.
I think, a double.
The 2 twins were now playing in the most approved brotherly fashion. But at last, Master Jackie, who really was as bold as brass, there was no getting behind that, deliberately kicked the ball as hard as ever he could down towards the seaweedy rocks.
Luckily, the gentleman in black, who was seated there by himself with all the sound equipment operating everything really amazingly, came gallantly to the rescue and intercepted the ball.
Was that Leopold Bloom?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, it's Leopold Bloom, the sound engineer.
The 2 twins claimed their plaything with lusty cries, and Sissy Caffrey, to avoid trouble, called to the gentleman to throw it to her, please.
The gentleman aimed the ball once or twice and then threw it up the strand towards Sissy Caffrey. Oh, but it rolled down the slope and stopped right under Gertie MacDowell's skirt, near the little pool by the rocks.
Gertie, will you kick that away and let them fight for it?
Gertie smiled assent and bit her lip. A delicate pink crept into her pretty cheek, but she was determined to let them see, so she lifted her skirt a little, but just enough, took good aim and gave the ball a jolly good kick. And it went ever so far.
And the 2 twins away after it, down towards the shingle.
Edie Boardman straightened up the baby to get ready to go.
And Sissy Caffrey packed away the buckets and the spades, and it was high time too, because the Sandman was coming for Master Boardman Jr. And Sissy told him that baby was to go dee-daw. Oh, and baby looked just too ducky, laughing out of his big gleeful eyes. Oh my puddiny pie, he has his bib destroyed.
Well, look, Sissy.
Was it sheet lightning?
But Tommy saw it too, up over the trees beside the church. Blue, then green, and purple.
It's fireworks! Sissy Caffrey cried, and then they all ran down the strand, helter-skelter, to see over the church and houses.
Edie with the pushcar with baby Boardman in it.
And Sissy holding Tommy and Jackie Caffrey by the hand so they wouldn't fall running. Come on, Gertie, it's the bazaar fireworks.
And Jackie Caffrey shouted to look, there was another, and they all saw it, and they all shouted to look, there it was. A long Roman candle going up over the trees, up, and they were all breathless with excitement as it went higher and higher, and then a Roman candle sprang, a rocket sprang, and bang, shot blind, and oh, the Roman candle burst, and it was like a sigh of oh, and everyone cried, oh. So that scene is usually told from Bloom's point of view. No, not the sound engineer, he actually isn't really a sound engineer because it's 1904, but it's usually told from the man's point of view. And I'm going to leave it to your imagination as to what exactly he is doing all by himself there in the rocks, watching the girls getting very excited.
Well, just to say, that is often quoted as the episode that got Ulysses banned on so many occasions.
That and the fact that everyone goes to the toilet, which, you know.
So we're coming near the end. The light of evening is fading.
I've lost all my pages.
You've lost. I better just continue on.
What's next? Oh yes, episode 14.
And this is finally where Bloom and Stephen will meet back as Bloom travels back from Sandymount Strand. The wandering Jew passes by Holles Street Maternity Hospital.
Yeah, so they're hanging out with the medical students in Holles Street. Somehow they're drinking in Holles Street, which I have to say I've never noticed a pub in Holles, not in Holles Street. Anyway, so yeah, they're drinking away, having a great old chat, while poor old Mina Purefoy is having a really stiff birth. It's going on for ages. So this episode is kind of written like various texts, some of them medical, throughout the ages. And apparently the development of the English language in the episode is believed to be aligned with the 9-month gestation period of the fetus in the womb. So there you have it, birth and death all the time. The next episode then, Circe is totally mad, completely and utterly mad. It's the most hallucinogenic dream sequence. Bloom and Stephen go to the notorious red light district, Monto, which Joyce calls Nighttown, and lots of characters from earlier in the book turn up. The entire cast turns up really and says kind of vaguely erotic things and do things they wouldn't normally do. And then Bloom is on trial, and then even the late Paddy Dignam makes an appearance. Bloom becomes king of his own territory, Bloomusalem. And there's a handy summary of the book so far. Daughters of Aaron, pray for us. Kidney of Bloom, pray for us. Wandering Soap, pray for us. Etc. Bloom turns into a woman at one point, and he meets some, she loves that soap, meets some notorious prostitutes. Anyway, episode 16, Eumaeus, is where Bloom is starting to really feel fatherly towards Stephen, and he tries to sober him up. Stephen's really drunk. He's tried to pay far too much money for the prostitutes. It's all gone a bit wrong. So Bloom brings Stephen to the cabman's shelter for a cuppa, and then home, which brings us to episode 17, Ithaca, Nighttime. This episode is written in the form of a rigidly organized and mathematical catechism of 309 questions and answers, and we're going to do all of them. We're not. We're not going to do it. That would be mean. But this was reportedly Joyce's favorite episode in the whole novel.
So from Joyce's favorite episode, Joyce also includes one of his favorite songs, Shularoon, and it appears as a discussion of nationhood, a bit like what we just experienced with Cyclops and the Barney Kiernan's pub, that Bloom talks about nationhood and expresses that through a Jewish song that he learned, and Stephen talks about Irish nationhood through an Irish song that he learned, and the song he chose was Shularoon. sugar cube, sugar thirst, agus élam, is go jay to Marvin in slow. I've sold my flax and I've sold my wheel to buy my love a sword of steel. So it in battle he might wield. Oh, my Johnny, he's gone for a soldier. Shoo, shoo, shoo-la-la-roo. Sugar, sugar, frog, sugar cube, sugar thirst, agus élam, is go jay to Marvin in slow. And Stephen and Bloom finally make it back. They return to 7 Eccles Street. They've had a whole day of wandering from 8 in the morning. And in fact, we've gone into the 17th of June. It's about 1 a.m. in the morning. And Bloom's effort to sober up Stephen hasn't really worked. And of course, Bloom has forgotten his key. He forgot that he remembered to forget. Or no, he forgot that he had, anyway.
Double, triple, quadruple bluff. He doesn't have his key.
He doesn't have his key, so he wonders, should he wake Molly Bloom? To enter or not to enter? To knock or not to knock?
Oh, what was Bloom's decision?
Well, he needs to get in somehow. So resting his feet on the dwarf wall, he climbed over the area railings, compressed his hat on his head, grasped 2 points of the lower union of rail and stiles, and lowers his body gradually, crouching in preparation for the impact of the fall.
Did he fall?
Yes, by his body's known weight of 11 stone and 4 pounds.
Did he rise uninjured by concussion?
Ooh, well, regaining a new stable equilibrium, he rose uninjured, though, concussed by the impact, and gained access to the kitchen through the sub-adjacent scullery. Bloom and Stephen go out into the garden under the heaven tree of stars and go for a last pee. Stephen heads away again. He doesn't stay the night. And Bloom settles in to lie down beside Molly. He removed a pillow from the head of the foot of the bed, prepared the bed linen accordingly, and entered the bed. Left hand under head, right leg extended in a straight line. He rests. He has travelled. With Sinbad the sailor, and Tinbad the tailor, and Jinbad the jailer, and Winbad the whaler, and Ninbad the nailer, and Finbad the failer, and Binbad the bailer, and Vinbad the quailer, and Linbad the yailer, and Zinbad the thaler. Of course, the last words are left to Molly Bloom.
For sea from train somewhere, whistling. The strength in those engines, like big giants. And the water rolling all over and out of them all sides, like the end of love's old sweet song. Weeping tone. Once in the dear dead days beyond recall, close my eyes, breath, lips forward, kiss. Sad look, eyes open, piano. When on the world the mists began to fall. I hate that. Ists beg. Oh, I'll let that out full when I'm in front of the footlights again. Kathleen Carney and her lot of squealers. Miss this, miss that, and miss the other. A lot of sparrow farts skitting around, talking about politics they know as much about as my backside. Anything in the world to make themselves some way interesting. Irish homemade beauties. They'd die down dead off their feet if ever they got a chance of walking down the Alameda on an officer's arm like me on the band night. My eyes flash my bust that they haven't passion. God help their poor head. I knew more about men and life when I was 15 than they'll all know at 50. They don't know how to sing a song like that. Out of the dreams that rose in happy throng, low to our hearts, love sang an old sweet song. And Gibraltar as a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain, yes. And when I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls, or shall I wear a red? Yes. And how he kissed me under the Moorish wall, and I thought, well, as well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again, yes. And then he asked me, would I? Yes, to say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts all perfume, yes. And his heart was going like mad, and yes, I said, yes, I will, yes. And in the dusk, where fell the firelight gleam, softly it wove itself into a dream. Just a song at twilight when the lights are low and the flickering shadows softly come and go. Though the heart be weary, sad the day and long, still to us at twilight comes love's old song, comes love's old sweet song. Even today we hear love song of yore. Deep in our hearts it dwells forevermore. Footsteps may falter, weary grows the way, still we can hear it at the close of day. So till the end, when life's dim shadows fall, love will be found the sweetest song of all. Just a song at twilight when the lights are low and the flickering shadows softly come and go. Though the heart be weary, sad the day and long, still to us at twilight comes love's old song, comes love's old sweet song. The end.
Trieste, Paris, Zurich.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James.
Darina and Sinead, really wonderful. Thank you for opening up Ulysses so effortlessly, making it seem so accessible and joyous. And how wonderful to have all that the music running through. I'm reminded myself of a quote from Ulysses, my favorite quote. The summer evening had begun to fold the world in its mysterious embrace. And what a lovely summer evening, and what a lovely week for your Bloomsday related events. So thank you all very much for attending. I hope you've enjoyed it. A few other people I would like to thank. First of all, Cian and Fiona on the tech side of things.
Yay! Otherwise known as Bloom.
And also I'd like to thank our own library development section. And of course, we're very excited to have this first collaboration, and we hope it's the first of many between the Central Library and Dublin City Libraries and the James Joyce Centre. I'd also like to thank David Nolan, the artist, for his permission to use his wonderful portrait of James Joyce in our publicity. And thanks also to Tom Normanley, one of our own colleagues in the Central Library, for his marvelous video of opening up Ulysses, which appeared on our library Facebook page. Thanks again here to Sinead and Darina for the permission to use the intro to Seaside Girls, their fabulous CD, Songs of Joyce.
Buy it.
Buy it. It's absolutely
It will help you understand the book.
fantastic.
Thanks.
Okay, yes, just something else I wanted to mention is that, keep an eye, or more than keep an eye, look at the James Joyce Centre website for other events, and an event that the Dublin Public Libraries are hosting as well from our side, which is readings from Ulysses Oscuelga, and that'll be on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Wednesday being actually Bloomsday, and booking can be made through Eventbrite again for that. Now, we've had some wonderful comments, Darina and Sinead. One that really kind of struck me was, let's see, I'm getting feedback here. Is everyone getting feedback?
You sound fine.
No, you sound fine.
Yeah.
It sounds okay. Okay.
If you can keep with it.
Okay. Yes. One attendee said, "Love this, relaxed and authentic. Their enthusiasm is infectious." And that's really what I'm feeling. And
Is that my
a lot of
mother?
other comments are illustrating that. There's just infectious. And,
Aww.
people obviously have been very interested and motivated to know more and to go further into the world of Ulysses. Some people have requested a list of songs, and I was thinking, like, I wasn't sort of making a list as I listened in my own
Like
head.
a list of songs that we did during
Yes,
that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything, there's I'm not sure of the exact number, but Joyce references hundreds of songs in
yeah.
Ulysses.
It might be
And there's, it could be nearly 1,000.
It's thousands in Finnegan's
Yeah.
Wake, but it might be still in the hundreds for
I
Ulysses.
think it's, so to us, it was really interesting exploring, I think I said it a little bit earlier, a soundscape of the city, because everybody is singing or listening to birds or whistles or tram tracks or calls, newspaper sellers, but particularly music. There's song going on, and songs been passed from character to character, or they're singing, like in the concert in the Ormond Hotel, or they're talking about other people and who are singing. So it's an extraordinary collection. Sinead sometimes calls it like a Spotify playlist.
It's the 1904 Spotify playlist.
From 1904, and Joyce was such a musical magpie, and he was collecting music from folk song to street ballads to parlour song to opera to, you know, the list is endless. Church music.
Because I mean, he was an amazing musician himself. His wife Nora thought he should have stuck to the music. She wasn't really into the writing, but like he was a tenor singer and he played guitar a bit as well. But as well as that, I think it was because he was slowly going blind. He was losing his sight, so everything became about what he could hear. Everything became very aural based, so that's where all the soundscapes come as well as the music.
But also the songs that he chooses are such fun, and they're invariably, the melodies are gorgeous, and the double entendres are like triple or quadruple entendres. I don't know what you call that.
But then as well, once you, like, he will mention a song and maybe there might be a line or two from it, and then you go and you learn the song and you realize that in verse 3 there's a whole section that completely echoes the whole theme of Stephen and his mother, or the whole theme of Bloom being cuckolded, or, you know.
Yes.
So he was thinking very deeply about an awful lot of it.
The first song we sang, Invisibility, has a lovely story to it. It's from the pantomime Turco the Terrible that Joyce would have attended in 1892 with his family, or his mother maybe in particular, as his memory, as he gives us through the character of Stephen in Ulysses. But that was found only a few years ago. So that song is really quite special because somebody found the whole pantomime libretto, I guess, or the songs from this pantomime in an old suitcase. John C. Doyle.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and so we're very lucky to have Invisibility, and in a way it...
I particularly love that one. I've been humming it all week.
But it's apparently in the pantomime, the characters, if they wore a red rose or a white rose, a bit like Molly at the end, shall I wear a red or a white? But if they had, I can't remember which colour, but if they appeared with a certain colour, that meant they were invisible. And if they had another colour, they could be seen again. But a bit like Stephen wanting to be invisible at certain times during the day, or even Bloom, that we all want to maybe disappear.
So it's just each song is as layered as that. There's just hidden depths of layered meaning all the way through.
Yeah, great. Just on one of the other songs, I think it's called Shula Gra.
Shula Roon?
Shula sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
There is another one, Shula Gra, I think. But
yeah, possibly.
Shula Roon, somebody asked if, well, I'm kind of interpreting the question really, and I'm going to ask if there's any available recording that you yourselves have made of that song that you're aware of.
We performed it on, was it on Arena?
I think so.
A number of years back, and I think that's available.
It's up on YouTube, I think, us singing Shula Roon from the Arena radio program.
So it's not like available on CD or from Spotify, but it is available, the Arena recording. I think it's up on YouTube. Is it on I think it's on the James Joyce website somewhere.
Yeah. It's really beautiful, isn't it, that song?
It is.
We usually run it into When Johnny Comes Marching Home, but that didn't fit for this one.
Right.
And Joyce had a very complicated relationship, I always think, with the Irish language. Interesting that your event on Wednesday will be Ulysses in Irish, because I think I'm really interested in his relationship for such a linguist who could speak fluent Italian, fluent French, Danish, Russian, whatever he wanted to learn. And yet he chose not to write too much through Irish, little bits, smatterings of Irish here and there.
He did do one Irish class with Padraig Pearse, apparently. But I was only the one, I think.
Well, we think it was because he fancied someone in the class.
Yeah, he didn't
it?
really want to.
Two very nice comments. One lady is halfway through the book and has said that this performance has really encouraged her to, keep on.
Come on.
We have done our job.
Come on, you can do it. We'll get you there.
And another is that the musical dimension that you brought to the fore here has encouraged another reader to go back and
Yeah.
Because I really think
really
the
nice.
music is the key. It's the way in. It really is. It really helps. When
Well,
you can
helped
hear the
me
songs.
anyway to feel. I could feel things more when I had the songs in my head.
Definitely.
Allowed.
So, do you need a list of those songs?
Or would that have bothered him?
We could.
I think
Yeah, you could send us a list and we could put that up on Facebook when we're putting a link to tonight's performance.
Yeah.
And that would be great.
Do
Great.
that. And maybe where it comes up as well.
I think you had a slight problem there, James.
Oh, you're
You're
muted.
muted?
James, you're muted for some reason.
Yeah.
There you go. You're
Yeah.
back again.
Sorry. Is there a reason why Joyce made Bloom Jewish? Is this a way to allow the book to question Catholicism without being criticized or without bothered?
I don't think he cared about being criticized,
No.
but I think he was very interested in the idea of the outsider.
Yes.
And making Bloom Jewish just made him very much an outsider. Because Stephen also questions Catholicism,
Yes.
as more of an insider. So.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And I'm just noticing here something on the Ulysses for All event that you had, which says that the book embraces the notion of a common culture, making it just as relevant today in a multicultural Ireland as when it was first published.
Yeah, Joyce would have been more of a globalist, I think.
Yes.
Yes, and where he was writing, so I was trying to get in the very last words everyone thinks are yes, I said yes, I will, yes, lovely Molly.
Yes.
But actually, the very end of the book is Trieste, Zurich, Paris,
Yes.
1914 to 1921. Here we are, 100 years later, in 2021. And that just sums up Joyce's own wandering and adventure through Europe. So Ulysses was written about Dublin, but in Trieste, Zurich, and Paris. And what we're getting is the energy of Dublin, but through this prism of these incredible melting pots. Trieste would have been the portal town for the port city of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and had people from all over the world, a complete melting pot. This big kind of city on the Mediterranean for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And then of course Paris, post-war Paris, when he moved there, and the excitement of meeting this international community and that he was embraced by, and he's feeding all of that.
But I think it does come into the book, because I mean, I don't know, but I'm not entirely sure that you could get a gorgonzola sandwich with a glass of Burgundy in Dublin in 1904. I mean, maybe you could.
I think
maybe
you
you
could.
It just sounds more like Trieste to me. And the fact that it's such a warm day. I mean, maybe it was a warm day, June 16th, 1904.
Yeah, he's
or
having
maybe he
memory.
was in Trieste.
He's remembering happy times, isn't
Yeah.
that? Like all our summers in the 70s were glorious.
Yeah.
But I think I had an idea that Ireland, Dublin was very monocultural, but the more I read about social history and what was happening at the time, there was a huge British Army presence. There was, different restaurants. There was a French restaurant. Even in Joyce's writing itself, talks about the Italian organ grinders and ice cream sellers and the German band that are in. So I
And
think,
of course, there's the butcher as well, the Hungarian butcher.
I think it was much more multicultural than I think I first thought of Ireland.
Yeah, and the music he chooses is also so multicultural in a sense, in many ways.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, like, I mean, he was fascinated by all the operas that would have visited. So, you know, he took a lot from those. I mean, the Irish operas as well, but, you know, all the, what's the one in my head? Oh, never mind. All the ones that aren't Irish.
Another lovely comment from someone who says that they agree that music is the key to Ulysses, and also reading it aloud.
Yeah.
So, you know, the voice, the human voice, as it were, as an instrument.
Yeah. There's a lovely audio reading of it that it's from 1982 that RTE did in 1982, but they re-released it last year.
They're releasing it again this year on Bloomsday. You can listen to the whole thing on the RTE player, I think.
Yeah. Although sometimes it's nice to go back to the written word and notice things like the citizen. The word "the citizen" is always written with a small c. He doesn't get a big C. He has a small c.
Okay. And of course, next year is a very big year with the centenary.
Yes.
Of the book.
The book was published on Joyce's 40th birthday, so the 2nd of February 2022. So a lot of twos, 2.
Okay, will be the actual centenary of the book.
That's the actual centenary. So I think we're just going to have to party and make up for lost time, James and Sandra.
Well, it's going to be the roaring 20s. It's going to be the roaring 20s.
I think the party starts 2, and we continue till Bloomsday, at least.
Yay, we're let out.
So you better all go home and read the book so we can really party Joyce style, Ulysses, Bloom style.
And with the libraries reopened, you can go to your local library and pick up the book.
Absolutely.
No excuses,
yes.
guys.
No excuses.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you again. It's just been marvelous.
Thank you.
Really marvelous. So final thanks to everyone for attending this event. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Thank you. Good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.